Hey guys, PJ here with Exotic Car Hacks, and today we are talking about Ferrari 458s, how incredible they are, but more importantly, how hackable they are. Now, we're gonna go to my little board and we're gonna talk about the values, but today let's take a look at this incredible 458 Spider in what I consider to be one of the best specifications possible. This is a 2012. Thanks again to Exotics Hunter here in Boca Raton for allowing us to use his car. This car is currently for sale. If you want to buy it, you can go ahead and reach out to him. Link is in the description about how to actually buy this exact car. This is a 2012. It is white. It has every possible perfect option you can imagine. Carbon interior, carbon LED, carbon seats, the right wheels, the right paint, the right shields, everything you could possibly want in a 458 is available right here in this car. Now later when we look at the board, we're going to look at what options are musts and which ones are the extra glamour. But I wanted to point out a couple of things because there's something very special about this specific Spider. The majority of Spiders have very low room clearance here if you're taller. Now I'm not that tall, it's because I'm about 5'7", almost 5'8", so but my penis size makes out for it. So the size here of my head is still very distant, and here's the benefit. With the race seats, you go even lower. So these are some things that a lot of people don't know is when you get race seats, you have more room. So if you're a tall person and can't fit inside exotics, consider the race seats on the Ferraris will give you a lot more headroom, especially in the Spiders. That's your trick. The second thing here that you look for when you buy a Ferrari 458 is to make sure it doesn't have sticky buttons. Sticky buttons can cost anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 to fix. And in most cases, you're looking for leaks. Now, if you're looking for earlier cars like 2010s and 11s, leaks are gonna matter more because they could cost you $30,000, $40,000 to fix. But on some of these newer cars like 12, 13, 14, and 15, you're not gonna deal with that as much because most repairs are $5 to $6 grand. 458s are pretty bulletproof cars and they're pretty exciting to drive. Now, they're not as exciting as some of the newer stuff or as an F12, but they're pretty beautiful altogether and they're very classy. Now, the best part about them is that they are going to be one of the best collector version of a Ferrari that's not a Speciale, a Scuderia, or a TDF or something, and they are still very affordable in the 200s. Now, let's go to the board and see what makes the 458 hackable, at what dollar, and what you need to find out next. All right, everyone, so now we have seen how cool the 458 is and how great of an actual Ferrari it is as it pertains to values. What do you have to know if you're going to be buying a 458? There's a couple of things you need to know about the years. First off, the car started in 2010 and left all the way to 2015. Now, there are some generational differences. So basically, you're going to have 2010, 2011. That's kind of like the entry-level cars. 2012, with the introduction of the Spider. Yes, there's some Spiders at 2012, very few. But again, 2012 was the better year for the transmission, and that carried to 2013. And then the 2014 and 2015 cars, which are the two final edition years, and that are going to be the more expensive premium product. So this is, we look at this all the time from a hackability standpoint. 2010 and 11s are fine now. At the beginning, they were not because they were having transmission issues, partially because the gearbox electronics were located inside the gearbox. So anytime you had a problem, you basically needed a new gearbox. On the other hand, with the 2012 and 13s, the electronics are outside the box, giving it a very easy diagnostic slash update and change to how the transmission works on the outside. So 2012s through 2013 are going to be the more bargainish, good value year. This is what we call the bargain year. It's always important to understand this because then you know what you're looking for. The value year, where the most hackability is possible, and then what we call the premium product, which is the collectability. So if you're looking to collect the car for the long term, you're going to be looking at a 14, 15 low mile super loaded premium car. If you're looking to hack and actually drive the car for free for 3,000 to 5,000 miles, you're going to look at 12 and 13. That's where you're going to get the value. And if you're on a budget and are looking for the cheapest car or a car that you can afford to buy, even though you may not do that well on the resale, you're going to be looking at the bargain years. The value year is where desirability basically meets the price index, so it's not too high. So what should you pay for these years? Where are the range of data? We're going to do it right here so that you can kind of see. And we're talking about the coupe now. We are not talking about specifically the Spider. So I want to show you here between these three cars how this kind of changes and why one is specifically a bargain versus others. So cheaper end of the 458 spectrum is going to go as low as 150, and the 2011 is going to come as high as 200. Again, having a 50K gap right here between the two cars. Now, the majority of these cars that are clean are going to be around the 180, and they're going to go all the way to 200. So this is going to be kind of your range depending on the miles. However, in this particular case, when you're looking at 2012s and 13s, you're going to be looking closer to about 190 here to about 220. Now, this is important to note the difference, because one of the big components here that is going to really change is that you could be getting a 12 and 13 right here around the 200K mark, and it would be basically a premium product creating only a 10K gap. Now, one of the reasons I tell you right here, without even looking at the premium product, we can tell this is just a better product to hack. You have a 10K room for error, which is very little. It's 5% on the car. Superb. This is excellent way to kind of gauge your hack. Secondly, here's something really important to kind of understand. Look at the older model, 2010, 2011, assuming same mileage, 180 to 200, 20K gap. However, the 180 here to 2, you see 190 to 2, same value. So the argument is, why have basically an 11 when you can have a desirable 12? It doesn't make sense. And then on the other hand, with the 14, some of the lower cars are going to be in the 210s. Some of the higher cars could be as high as 300K. This is going to be very mileage dependent, option dependent, etc. But you can see this huge gap of over 90K, and this is something that now makes it a retail imaginary statement rather than anything else. So we're never looking at the 14, 15 from a hackability standpoint. However, this is going to be the more premium product if you're collecting for 10 years down the road, putting the car away, barely driving it. This is where you want to be buying, because this is what's going to end up at auctions in 10 years. This was the poster car for many people. This will end up at auction down the road and will do very well. However, the 12, 13s, for those of you that want to go driving with very limited risk, is basically where it's at. This is something you just have to understand about the years and how they work together. So what options do you want if you're looking at the 458 Italia, specifically when we're talking about the coupes here? Coupe or Spider doesn't make a difference in terms of options. What matters is that you take in consideration these basic options. Lift, which is not standard, so make sure that you pay attention to that. Lifts are not standard on the 458, something that people think automatically all these cars have lifts. Secondly, you ready for this? This is also not standard, which is very, very bizarre for a car of this dollar. Backup camera. 458's uneven standard with sensors, which means that you could technically have a car that has no backup sensor and no backup camera. That's not a joke. Some people can spec without it, and a lot of people did not spec the backup camera. Why? I have no idea. Now, premium product is going to be race seats. Now, I always like the race seat configuration for a Ferrari for one reason. It makes it a lot less units, it looks a lot better, and it's a lot more desirable. Now, while they're also comfortable, so it's not really like, oh, it's a deterrent and you can't really drive it, you look at it, it's a good seat. And because of that, usually race seat cars will bring a 10 to 15K premium over non-race seat cars. So if you can get kind of this combination, which is harder to get, it's going to be a very good thing. Now, in addition to that, carbon fiber is, of course, something we always want on cars, but it really depends on what costs. Historically, you could modify a lot of the carbon inside and outside of car by buying the parts after. It wouldn't make much of a difference. If you can't find a car with these three things and carbon, I would just focus on these three things specifically. They're just going to be better. Now, if we're looking at the Spider, nothing here changes. The values obviously change, and the things are slightly different. And I'm going to walk you through the basic hackability of a Spider and nothing else. If 14, 15 premium product no longer matters at this point, 12 and 13 is really where it's at, even on the Spiders. Now, the way the Spiders change, I'm going to change this right here so you can see it. The way the Spiders change is really simple. We earlier were about 190, and on for these coupes, right? So for the Spiders, you're going to be a little bit more. The majority of clean Spiders are going to start about 220K, and they're going to run about 250K. Now, here's the harder part of this. Because right now we're in a slower market, the majority of cars are basically going to be here rather than here. So you're going to have a lot of basically 235K and below to 220. Now, the Spider has about a 15K gap, but it's okay because the difference between a coupe and a Spider, again, has a good 30K gap. So if you're looking at that, if you're finding a really clean, well-loaded coupe somewhere around 210, you're going to spend about 240 for that exact same variation as a Spider. So some of the things you have to consider is that while you're adding 5K in liability to your hack, you're also getting a higher sticker, and you're getting a much more desirable car, and this is why it matters. with a lot less units available used on the market. And that matters. Now, contrary to what most people believe, when they see 220K, 210K spiders on the market, they require work. So when we use that number, and wholesalers are going to come in this chat and say, well, I can buy one for 190, I saw one at the auction for 200. It still doesn't take in consideration that the car, by the time it is functional as if it was in good shape, meaning all the bullshit's taken out, all the scrapes are fixed, tires are fixed, brakes are good, all the leaks and all the bullshit under the cars, they're old, starts to get fixed. You start to look, again, back at this number. It's not about the buy number, it's the in number for a completely good to go car. That's what's different about hacking versus wholesaling. Wholesaling is about, oh, I got this number and I'm just gonna flip this car. You don't have to live with the car for a year, so you don't give a shit if it's 190 and then you're out at 2, you just made 10 grand. But you're not driving the car, using it for a year, having it piss oil on your driveway, or have to take your wife around or your kid around and then wonder if the tire is gonna blow out or not. You're buying a car, you're flipping it. This is not hacking. Hacking is about getting in a car that has and is clean, almost like it is new. It does not mean it is in new condition or does not have a ding or a scratch there and there. It just means that it is mechanically sound, running, and will not need additional things by the time you're selling it a year later. So this dollar in is the dollar all in. Now, if you can find the car 190, that gives you basically 30 grand to bring it up to spec. That's how you have to think about this, not, oh, well, I bought a car for 190, I beat this guy by 30K. It's very unlikely, and I'm gonna say it's near impossible unless your cousin was Santa Claus, that you're going to find a clean spider for 190. Like, I have bought probably about 100 spiders in the last maybe 5 years, and I've never bought one for 190. So that should tell you that if they're clean, they're not going to be 190, and that's what matters. The cleanliness makes a difference. So this is the type of formulas we teach you at Exotic Car Hacks. So if you want to learn more about how to hack cars, again, don't forget we have the free training in the description, and of course you have the complete opportunity to join Exotic Car Hacks, the best community for exotic car owners who are financially savvy and understand math, so they can get in and out of cars without losing money. And that link with a special offer is also in the description. So if you want to see more things like this, comment, like, turn on notifications, and of course I will catch you next time. But don't forget, unlike a lot of YouTubers out there, a lot of guys out there that are talking about values, we don't change our tune every single week. I was actually going through someone else's entire catalog of car videos about values on the internet. Again, this is the difference between having done this for 20 years and having had a YouTube channel for 2 years. The big difference is that, again, having done this, you have a worldwide view over this over 2 decades. Someone who's new at this is just chasing headlines and baits. Markets crashing, markets going up, markets crashing, markets going up, markets crashing. It's not helping you make good, real, relevant financial decisions as it pertains to buying your very own car. So understand, again, there's a reason we're a lot richer than just about all these guys out there teaching the same thing. It's because we live, breathe, and literally die for this stuff every single day, every single minute. I'm buying like probably 5 to 6 cars a day, probably about 400 to 500 a year. I mean, it's a pretty big analysis of market through real life experience. And a lot of times I'm using my own money to do it. So don't forget that. Learn more from the channel, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll catch you next time on Exotic Car Hacks. My name is Pejman Ghadimi, and I teach people how to drive exotics for free. Let's look here at how this Huracan can cost as little as $300 a month.